So next up, we have a 2-for-1 deal with both a panel and a special announcement.
Given the topic and the moderator, I can safely say this is going to be a great one.
The next panel is Nation-State Bitcoin Adoption, narrated by Samson Mo, CEO at Pixelmatic and Jan3. Please give him a very warm welcome.
Thanks, guys. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here in Lugano, and we have a all-star panel today. So please give a warm welcome to Her Excellency Milena Mayorga, Ambassador of El Salvador to the United States of America.
Hello again.
Oh, that side. Oh, sorry. You're here. I'm there. And Senator Indira Kempis from Mexico. And Prince Filip of Serbia. Sorry, His Excellency, no, His Royal Highness, Prince Filip of Serbia. And Pietro Poretti, Director of the Economic Development Division of the City of Lugano. Nice. All right, so we'll have our panel, and there's going to be a special announcement partway through. So I guess to kick it off first, we can start talking about nation-state Bitcoin adoption. We've seen a surge around the world of interest in Bitcoin and Bitcoin adoption, much like with El Salvador, in Lugano, in Prospera in Honduras, and in Madeira in Portugal. And there's more and more every week, it seems. So we're kind of on the verge of hyper-Bitcoinization, especially with the current state of the legacy financial system in the state that it is now. So I think it's just a matter of time. But we have an excellent panel of guests here that can offer some insight into what's happening now and where we think things will be going in the future. So my first question is just a general update on the state of things in the world to my colleague, Prince Filip. What's happening in Serbia? What's happening in other places, maybe in the UK and Latin America?
Thanks, Samson. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. So I recently joined Samson with Jan3. I was working in traditional finance, and I wanted to move into Bitcoin because I see it as a crucial upgrade to our financial system. So I'm very, very excited to be on board with Samson and Jan3. So currently, we've got a few conversations happening. Maybe I'll start with Liechtenstein. As you know, Liechtenstein, they are very much into their Austrian economics, and we have a few ground-level conversations happening, some with a couple of individuals, one of them who's actually doing a good job orange-pilling the current prime minister. So hopefully that will develop into some good news eventually. The other news is I recently found out that my cousin, Prince Filip of Brazil, obviously Brazil's not a monarchy, but he is a member of parliament that was just re-elected into the seat, member of parliament of Sao Paulo. So I've reached out to him, and he's been welcoming to hold some, to have a meeting with him. Then there is my home country, Serbia. Last year they implemented, I wouldn't say call them the best crypto laws, but at least they recognize Bitcoin. They didn't ban it, but they've imposed capital gains tax, which is not great, and they have a lot of barriers of entry into the space. And for existing crypto companies, I hate saying the word crypto, but yeah, it's tough for them to get a license. So I've actually I'm opening up a hub there with the help of some really good local Bitcoiners to educate people, and I will use the education there and the conversations there to start lobbying for change with crypto laws to make it so they're more welcoming, because Serbia has a problem with a huge brain drain problem. This has been going on for 30, 40 years. More people are leaving the country than they are being born in the country, and this has to stop. Otherwise, it's a demographical nightmare. And Serbia is the right place for Bitcoiners. They've got a good mindset there. They've gone through a lot. They've had the third worst hyperinflation in the history of humans, and so it's important that they understand and they welcome Bitcoin, and so we can create jobs and tempt people back. And yeah, I guess that's it for the moment.
All right. So let's shift the conversation over to El Salvador. We just had the announcement. What do you think the next steps are going to be, if you can elaborate some more, and your thoughts on what Lugano and El Salvador can do together?
Well, as you know, El Salvador is headquarters of the economic freedom. It's the first country that adopted Bitcoin 1 year ago. We just celebrated 201 years of our independence in Central America. But for us, it's like our first anniversary, because we now are really freedom. And being in Lugano, in this Plan B forum, and signing an agreement with a city that believes in Bitcoin is so relevant and important. Bitcoin doesn't have jurisdiction. That's why I'm here. I have jurisdiction. I have to be in the United States. But I understand, and I represent President Bukele, who's really open. He has really sharp and new ideas. And that's why, as a small country, we're doing a lot of revolution. And next steps to come are very important, because now in El Salvador, it's been 1 year of the adoption. People are starting to know more about Bitcoin. There's been a huge campaign, bad publicity against our decision. A lot of pressure from international entities, international governments, and it's a big challenge. I think that next steps are really important. You've been waiting for the volcano bonds, for new regulations. I understand that a lot of Bitcoiners, they want to go and live in El Salvador. So we're working in these next steps. First was like the big announcement and the big step. The Salvadorian people gave President Bukele the majority in the Congress, and that's why El Salvador could make that change and pass the Bitcoin law. That's difficult, I think, for the rest of the countries. For us, it's because President Bukele defeated the traditional parties, and it's like the new era. And this new episode and history for El Salvador, people like you can understand, but the status quo are denying this change. And it's very challenging for our government to try to live in the two worlds parallel, because, you know, we cannot switch from one thing to the other one like that. It has to be a process. But we're really proud, and I think there's lack of President Bukele in the world.
Right. I think it's important that we have more nation states, more cities, just more people allying together to support Bitcoin. I think if El Salvador is standing alone in the world, then it's a risk. So we definitely do need more compatriots in Bitcoin.
And as I mentioned, this is going to be the first Bitcoin office. It's going to be a chamber of commerce. We're going to have a honorary consul, and he's going to promote El Salvador in Europe. Mm-hmm. And to be in Lugano, which is very open to Bitcoin, we can use Bitcoin here. And Stacy Herbert was posting a tweet saying, hey, here they receive Salvadorian money. Yeah, of course, because Bitcoin is our legal tender in El Salvador. So it's a big step, and we're really grateful.
All right, thank you. So, Pietro, I'd like to call on you next. Can you give us some insight into the thought process for the city of Lugano, why you decided to get to adopt a Bitcoin standard. Obviously, Paulo Arrodino and his team at Bitfinex and Tether had a lot to do with it, driving things forward and just being strong advocates. But from the side of the city, what was your thinking behind that process? And also, how did you line up to do the MOU together with El Salvador?
Yes, no, thank you. Well, let's say that Lugano has taken a very gradual approach. In that respect, Lugano has not been as bold as El Salvador. This is why in March of this year we announced de facto legal tender. And you can't imagine how many times we were asked, but what does de facto mean? What is the meaning of that word? Well, it means in practice, of course, right, translated into English, but it really reflects the gradual approach that we have chosen. In Switzerland, the legal tender, according to the applicable law, is the coins and the banknotes, right? The Swiss franc, coins or banknotes. But since we strongly believe that Bitcoin adoption is an opportunity for Lugano, is an opportunity for our citizens and for our businesses, well, we introduced this de facto approach, which means working on the one hand as closely as possible with economic activities throughout the city, merchants, stimulating their curiosity, of course, and promoting adoption, first and foremost with them. And we have done that starting from 2020, again, this sort of gradual approach, really step by step. First with a payment token linked to the, or pegged, let's say, to the Swiss franc that we think is really the entry point. It's something we think easy to understand. It's probably also a more immediate method of payment than Bitcoin for many, because it's stable. Above all, it's stable. So we started with that. And then, as you know, as we have announced this morning, progressively, really step by step, we moved into Bitcoin, of course, on Lightning and Tether. And we have done that by starting distributing POS, so payment terminals, throughout the city. We have, as we speak, the first 60 pilots, hotels, shops, and bars and restaurants. And we will continue. We will soon finalize this pilot phase and then move into mass distribution throughout the city. So this is one part. And the second part is the city administration accepting payments in Bitcoins, as much as the city will accept payments in our payment token and Tether, of course. And this has also been done gradually. The financial services of the city administration had, of course, to spend a significant amount of time upgrading the system, right, in order to enable payments in those three currencies, above all, of course, also Bitcoin.
So, Pietro, I want to continue on a bit. Has there been any outreach from other cantons and other cities in Switzerland after you started this initiative?
Yes, and quite a lot, starting from our neighboring municipalities. And this happened shortly after we announced our payment token in December of 2020. So a few months into the implementation of this project, we were approached by other municipalities asking to share with them information, the cost also of our initiative, the benefits, because of course, it is something that, or the initiative, the main goal of the initiative is to support local spending, right? To support small and medium enterprises. And let's not forget that we, as administration, conceptualized and then implemented this payment token during the pandemic, during the first part of the pandemic, right after the government-imposed lockdowns, right? When shops were closed and when a lot of, an important part of the customer base was moving to electronic commerce as well. So brick and mortar shops were losing customers, of course. So lots of interest on that payment token, but of course, after the 3rd of March, so the announcement of Plan B, a lot of curiosity, a lot of interest also on what we are doing, what we have set out to do. And now that we are starting, we already see, and also today I think there are many guests from other cantons, right, that joined us from the northern part of Switzerland, and that are asking us about the practical aspects of this implementation.
That's great news to hear. Dr. Adam Back was theorizing before that it could be possible to adopt Bitcoin at a nation-state level in Switzerland, because there was a referendum a few years back to go back to a gold standard, and you could potentially do a similar referendum to go to a Bitcoin standard. Do you think that is in the cards in the coming years?
We shall see. This is really anybody's guess. I do remember what you just mentioned, of course. The law, just to be clear, the law has not been changed here, so the approach is different compared to what El Salvador has done. El Salvador is a country, of course, with a parliament, a government that were able to do so. Our initiative has not led to any, so far at least, right, until now, any legislative amendments, but we think we can certainly set an example here, and let's see how much traction we gain in the coming months.
That's great to hear. So let's shift over to Mexico. Indira, can you give us an update on what is happening there? In Miami, we announced that we were going to try to push for a legal tender in Mexico, and there has been a number of news articles out, including the Central Bank of Mexico doing a central bank digital currency, and you had put forth a proposal for that, which caused some confusion in the space. So maybe you can give everyone an update and insight into what's happening.
Yes, I am so happy to be here with people who believe in freedom, because for me, Bitcoin is freedom. So I will explain my ideas in Spanish, and Milena will be my translator.
I'll try.
Yeah, thank you so much. Empezamos esto defendiendo a la comunidad Bitcoiner por la presión del Banco Central, del Banco de México.
We began defending a group of entrepreneurs of Bitcoin from the central bank.
Y a partir de ahí abrimos un proceso de ingresar iniciativas en el Senado.
And we started a process of new initiatives in the Senate
para hacer del Bitcoin una moneda de curso legal, como lo hizo El Salvador.
to promote Bitcoin as legal tender as in El Salvador.
Porque defendemos la libertad.
We defend liberty.
Segundo, hay una población excluida del sistema financiero.
There's exclusion of people from the traditional system.
Más del 60% no tiene acceso ni oportunidades en ese sistema.
More than 60% are unbanked.
Bitcoin es una oportunidad de inclusión.
Bitcoin is opportunity of inclusion.
Tercero, estamos haciendo con otras organizaciones y empresas programas educativos.
We're also educating people through some enterprises
Y experiencias locales con los gobiernos locales de Nuevo León.
and with municipalities of Nuevo León State.
Y en eso estamos, eso es el proceso. No vamos a cansarnos hasta que hagamos del Bitcoin una moneda de curso legal.
That's the process, step by step. We're not going to be left behind until we can achieve Bitcoin as legal tender.
Right. All right, great answer. So let's shift the discussion over now to central bank digital currencies. It's a very pertinent topic currently, with the new PM of the UK having made a strong declaration of why they're a good thing and why they're pushing for it. Maybe, Filip, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts on that initiative from the UK and G7 countries?
Yeah, it's quite scary, really. I didn't say anything. Many people sort of predicted this a while back, seeing that the change, I would say, undemocratic change of of leaders in the UK, where the leaders were not actually voted in by the people, and this led to Rishi Sunak, who's an advocate for CBDCs, and that really is, well, I mean, it's terrible. I think that the UK are losing control of the financial system after what's happened recently in their with their pound and the sterling, sorry, the pound sterling, and literally they have blown up their own bonds, and it's made an absolute nightmare for the pension system there. So this is obviously not good news for the average person in the UK. So I think going to a CBDC for them is logical, but for us normal people, it's not. Yeah, I just don't. I think it's an important time now more than ever that we start to push forward the education for Bitcoin, as the slogan of this conference is Bitcoin is freedom as well. But also we talked about this earlier on, that Bitcoin is not only just freedom, but freedom comes responsibility, and Bitcoin is responsibility, and it's for us to be responsible to make sure that these draconian, dystopian ideas are not pushed forward. And finally, we have that tool, Bitcoin, which is the absolute opposite from a CBDC. It couldn't be any more different. And this is up to us to educate people to understand this difference, because a lot of people I speak to are, even with groups of my friends, they're actually thinking, oh, CBDCs, they don't sound too bad. You know, it makes life easier for us. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. They actually will impose more control on you. And this control means that all of a sudden, like the government, you won't be able to buy goods and services that are government sanctioned. So really, it will take away cash from you, so you will have no privacy. That doesn't sound great at all to me. Hopefully to them as well. But it's, as I said, I think education is key over here, and we're entering a scary moment in history right now with the talk of CBDCs, which is not only the UK, but I believe there's about 79, 80 countries around the world that are toying with the idea. So it's up to us to teach.
So, Pietro, what is the situation in Switzerland? Is there any push towards a CBDC?
Well, certainly those responsible for monetary policies are certainly analyzing this possibility, as it is done in other countries. But I would rather go back to our level, right? I mean, representing the city of Lugano today, and I think that to this discussion we can really add our perspective, because a municipality in a country like Switzerland is the lowest level, right? There are three levels. There is the federal government, right, the confederation, the cantons, which are regions basically with their own government, and they decide on many, many matters. They have a lot of autonomy. And then there is the lowest level, which is what we represent here, right? The city of Lugano municipality, which has certainly, when it comes to big things like monetary policy, I would say, no room for maneuver whatsoever, right? We don't get to amend federal laws. We don't get to decide on those things. But something that I've heard here, education, right? I think here is where really this step-by-step approach, starting from the bottom, right, and build up. Here is where I think we can all make a contribution. Then, of course, those at government level, they are certainly doing, as I was saying, they're doing their analysis, and informed citizens, I think, right? But again, to be an informed citizen, you need to have access to education, you need to be interested, you need to have information as well, of course, right? In order to build your own opinion, to prepare yourself, and then be able to influence also the decision-making process. And I think here is what Plan B is also trying to do at the local level, really the lowest level possible. This is what we are trying to achieve as well.
Mm-hmm. In many ways, the local or ground-up approach is a direct counter to globalist initiatives. So I think it's very important, everything that Plan B is doing and El Salvador is doing and all the other groups around the world. So I'll move to you, Milena. So El Salvador does still have a central bank, and the colon, the currency of El Salvador, technically still exists, even though it's not in use or in circulation. So El Salvador could have gone the route of central bank digital currency, but President Bukele made a very big change and went to Bitcoin, a Bitcoin standard. What would you say is the advice from El Salvador to countries that are looking at implementing a CBDC?
Okay, to have digital currency is not the same to have Bitcoin. El Salvador went for the best, went for Bitcoin.
There is no second best.
And that's a big step because Bitcoin is decentralized money. And it doesn't get along with the central bank. We still have colones over there. I don't think we're not going to use it anymore. We have dollars and we have Bitcoin. And with Bitcoin, we're truly bringing to El Salvador economic freedom. I didn't speak about the Chivo wallet, which is our national wallet. It was created with the Bitcoin adoption and the Bitcoin law. I can give you some percentages. For example, more than 70% of the population in El Salvador are unbanked. Imagine, we are 6 million of Salvadorians living in El Salvador, and 4 million downloaded the Chivo wallet, the national wallet. And now they can use the incentive that government is giving for the population, $30 in Bitcoin, and they are using it. They can trade, they can buy an aspirin, a Coca-Cola, they can buy a hamburger, Starbucks, or a car if they want, or buy an apartment. But still, they have to learn more about Bitcoin, and what happened is that they converted it to dollars and cash it away, because we have like more than 200 ATMs around El Salvador. And I'm sure if the same incentive is coming today, after 1 year of the Bitcoin adoption, they probably could stay with the money and learn more about Bitcoin in the wallet. So I think it's a process, and I want to also say that we're really thankful with Bitfinex and Twitter, because they are helping our people in difficult moments, and they sent aid to El Salvador, and we were in these small towns giving money through the Chivo wallet, giving Bitcoin through the Chivo wallet, and they were ready to use their wallet and receive the Bitcoin because they know it's money. They know it has a big value. And another thing is that right now, with the price, you know, there's a lot of bad publicity that we're losing, that we lost a lot of money. But President Bukele stands up for Bitcoin, saying the Bitcoin is Bitcoin. So if we don't sell Bitcoin, we haven't lost any money.
Great answer. So, Indira, Mexico has a strong central bank, and we know that they do want to issue a CBDC. Do you think a CBDC can coexist with a Bitcoin law, or is it one or the other?
It's clear that it's a process, but thank you, Milena. Es un proceso. El Banco Central en México tiene autonomía.
It's a process. The central bank has its own autonomy.
Han declarado que para el 2024 esto va a pasar. Habrá un peso digital.
They already announced that for 2024 it's going to be the peso, electronic peso.
Digital peso. En el Senado queremos la discusión.
In the Senate, we want to discuss it.
Y que no sea una decisión que nada más tome el Banco de México.
We don't want them only to take this big decision. We want to share it.
Por eso hemos estado haciendo esa conversación política con los tomadores de decisión para que en el Senado se haga esa discusión.
So we're talking to the stakeholders so we can discuss this in the Senate.
Porque no queremos adaptarnos al sistema financiero.
We don't want to adapt to the traditional banking system.
Queremos cambiar al sistema financiero.
We want to change the economic system.
Y Bitcoin es la respuesta.
And Bitcoin is the answer.
Descentralizar,
Decentralize
es lo más importante para que exista libertad e inclusión financiera.
Decentralize is the most important thing so we can achieve liberty
And financial
Inclusion.
inclusion.
All right, thank you, Indira. So you were promised a special announcement, and we'll just announce it, and then there will be a video. So we have a short message from Zuri Rios. She's a renowned Guatemalan politician and currently the president of the political committee of the Valor Party. She was the deputy of the Congress of the Republic for 4 consecutive legislatures from 1996 to 2012. Cue video. Anytime.
Plan B Forum Lugano. Greetings from the land of eternal spring. I'm looking forward to welcoming you to the future of Guatemala. A few days ago, I published a video about the digital future of my country in my social networks, and I did this after consultation with young people. Our new generations are asking for a greener, cleaner, freer, and more honest Guatemala with economic and financial freedom to help build our future. I'm already excited about what we're going to build together. Guatemala must establish itself as the financial center for the 10th largest economy in the world if we can integrate all of Central America. And the reason is simple. We are a region with more than 43 million people, making us an attractive market for the world. We are emerging economies. Every year, Guatemala receives more than $18 billion in remittances. That's 17% of our GDP. Our economy, therefore, depends on it. But more than 20% of those remittances of Guatemalans living abroad is paid in commissions just for sending it when they shouldn't have to pay a cent. That is why I have come to talk about the future of Guatemala. We're looking forward to learn about financial technology and your digital platforms, ideas, experiences, and innovations. Today, we initiate a new beginning, a new model of freedom. I'm sure that together, we will be able to write a new story. Mesdames et messieurs, je suis sûre qu'ensemble, nous allons écrire une nouvelle histoire. À bientôt.
All right, so do you guys want to give some thoughts on the announcement, the video? Milena?
Well, Guatemala is our neighbor. I think they're watching us, and their population share a lot of our needs. They have a large diaspora in the United States, as we have also a big diaspora. And if they make this big step, they could be benefit as the same as us. For example, we're receiving remittances in Bitcoin through the Chivo wallet, and 0% cost. And this is a big step because they don't need an intermediary between them and their families, and Guatemala could follow that big step. I believe she's been clever talking about economic freedom, and I wish Guatemala can make it too.
Yes, Guatemala is a very interesting country because it's, I think, its second largest trading partner is El Salvador. So given that El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as money, it would make a lot of sense for them to follow that same Bitcoin standard, because then you can trade even more freely. The interesting thing with Guatemala is they have a law, the divisas, the currency law, that recognizes foreign currency, and Bitcoin is actually a foreign currency now, because it's the money of El Salvador and Lugano. So all they have to do, they don't need to pass a Bitcoin law, technically. They just need to say Bitcoin is a foreign currency. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's different, and they can find their own way.
But on the topic of economic freedom and, I guess, economic development and incentivizing investments, Pietro, I'll go to you for Lugano. How big of a factor was that towards Lugano adopting a Bitcoin standard?
Certainly a big one. If we talk about also the potential, right, of a new, it's also of a new technology and an opportunity to help diversifying the economy of our city, of our region. You know, Lugano is, I think, over the decades, has become well known for financial services, more traditional finance, banking. Lugano is an important banking hub in Southern Europe. And other sectors, from tourism to trading to pharma, or even the fashion industry. So definitely, we also see a potential in that respect, a new technology, and therefore also companies, businesses that build, all right, that they're building products, services using this technology. And then let me say, Samson, that of course we've seen our friend from Guatemala. We've heard also, of course, El Salvador and Mexico. Here, the premises are a little bit different, obviously, or the point of departure is a bit different. The conditions are a bit different. We don't have, let's say, not experienced massive, for instance, devaluations of the Swiss franc for our currency. If anything, then the problem is the opposite, that the currency is too strong. We do not have unbanked people. Here you're literally born with a bank account in this country, or more or less. We also do not have or experience the problem with those huge cuts on remittances that wipe out an important chunk of your earnings, which is of course a pity, you know. So the premises are different, and yet we see Bitcoin, of course, as a revolution. We see Bitcoin as a revolutionary technology as well, and everything that can be built on it. So in this respect, I think that there is a big opportunity for Lugano as well.
All right.
Also, I want to add that for El Salvador, it was like we have a new image. Before, probably El Salvador was really known because of our gangs, our civil war, our migration flows, everything bad.
Well,
Right now,
you have coffee, which was good.
right now, you can buy coffee with Bitcoin. Right now, you are listening about El Salvador because of our volcanoes, surfing, Bitcoin Beach. So, you know, it's been really positive for the image of El Salvador.
That's true. So can you speak more to the economic impact that adopting Bitcoin has had? Because in the media, as you were saying, there's a lot of negative news. There's problems with El Salvador. El Salvador's not going to meet their debt obligations. But we know from some statistics out there that economic growth is up. GDP is double digits. Could you speak more to the on-the-ground situation from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a special era for El Salvador. As you said, we grew 2 digits. This was historical. And our exports also are increasing. The remittances are increasing. And President Bukele is also cleaning our debt. He made a good step buying our debt. And I think with the volcano bonds, we're going to show the world there's another way to pay our debt. And we need you. We need you as partners. We cannot be alone. We need you because if El Salvador succeeds, we're going to prove the world that it's possible.
Right. So, Indira, are there other senators or Mexican politicians that are looking at the economic miracle in El Salvador? And what are the discussions around? What are people saying?
Todavía tenemos el reto de la ignorancia, pero por eso la educación y la información es lo más importante que tenemos. De ahí que queremos crear experiencias.
We need the big challenge to educate people, and we need to create experiences.
Pusimos un primer cajero Bitcoin en el Senado de México.
We have the first ATM in the Senate of Mexico.
Es el primero en una institución pública en el mundo.
It's the first one in the governmental institution.
Y tenemos que hacer que alcen la voz.
We have to make that more can raise their voice.
Y provocar esta discusión porque no va a ser tan sencillo.
And to promote the discussion because it's not going to be simple.
Pero como decía Milena, no estamos solos.
As I said, we're not alone. We're a family.
Yeah, and it is possible.
All right, Philip, are there any discussions happening in Serbia? Like, is El Salvador a topic there? Like, I often see El Salvador trending on Twitter. Are there people interested in El Salvador in Serbia?
Sadly not, but I'm visiting El Salvador for the first time in November, so I'm very, very excited to actually...
You will be eating pupusas.
So I'll be really excited to actually speak to locals there, hear their experiences about how Bitcoin has maybe changed their lives and improve the economical situation. But then I'll bring those examples back to Serbia and push them to individuals that matter, really. So, well, that matter. All humans matter. Sorry, to people that are in power, politicians, and I want to spread the word of El Salvador because I think El Salvador, and I think the name is fitting, the savior. And really, they really took a leap of faith into Bitcoin. And I think this is something that's now happening in places where there are more financial privilege, like in Lugano. They've taken a smaller leap, but still it's a leap nonetheless. And I want to show these examples to Serbia and the region and around the world. And that's why myself joining you in the mission of nation-state adoption, that top-down approach, which is not the Bitcoin approach. Bitcoin is a bottom-up approach, but that bottom-up approach needs a hand from the top down. So we have to approach it like a two-prong approach, really. So we need to make it easier for the bottom-up to grow. And we need to educate the top down so they let it grow. That's Bitcoin. That's what I'm excited to be doing right now.
Great. So we just have a few minutes left. I think as this panel is about nation-state adoption, we can wrap it up on a positive note. If you could choose any country to adopt Bitcoin next, which country would it be and why? For me, it'd be Canada, because I live there, and we need it. But what are your thoughts? Maybe, Pietro, you can go first.
I'll be very, very modest, and I will start from our neighbors, but not even neighboring countries, neighboring municipalities, to see more support also for what we are doing in Lugano from our region, basically. Yes.
All right. Philip?
Well, you think the obvious answer, my answer will be Serbia, but I think smaller countries will be quicker to adopt Bitcoin than others. But I'm going to go for China.
That's a big ask. It's a big ask, but dream big. Indira?
México y cualquier otro país de América Latina.
Mexico and another Latin America country.
Porque necesitamos reducir la pobreza.
We need to decrease poverty.
y Bitcoin es un factor determinante
And Bitcoin is key
para que eso suceda.
for that goal.
right. And then Milena, I guess your answer is the most interesting one.
Yeah, well, after the announcement that I just saw, I can see probably our neighbors, Guatemala, could be the next ones. And it's a big way because she has to run as a presidential candidate, but she's open for Bitcoin. They're our neighbors, and I think we can influence them. So,
Yeah.
Guatemala.
That's great. Maybe we all need to go on a mission and visit Guatemala
Of course.
Let's go.
Yes, why not?
with Max and Stacy. All right.
Well, I want to end inviting you all to come in November. Thank you because you're coming. And it's going to be a fantastic conference. Last year we had Bitcoin Week. We had a lot of tourism. We also increased tourism because of Bitcoin. So be part of this. You can be founders of our new nation too. Welcome to El Salvador.
All right. We're out of time. So I guess just give another round of applause to our excellent panelists, and thank you. Okay.